let's bring in Pete Nakos, NIL expert here at On3. Some call him Pocket Watching Pete. We just call him an expert. But Pete, we want to talk true freshmen making an impact, especially at the wide receiver position. Most notably, last weekend, we saw Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith go off. Ryan Wingo has been putting up huge numbers, all true freshmen. And yesterday on On3, you wrote that Jeremiah Smith's NIL valuation has risen to $1.4 million. Now, what was it before the start of the season, and how do you get to the $1.4 million figure?
Yeah, so Jeremiah Smith was at roughly $650,000 in July, right? Well before the start of the season, right? Yep, and now he's at 1.4, so a significant increase. He's up over 200,000 since that Michigan State game where he had a wonderful end-around touchdown and then 2 one-handed catches, which was something to take in. His social media following has also really taken off. He was at he's up over he's almost doubled his social media following since July, something that really factors into that NIL valuation.
The
brand value.
Literally look at following, right?
And if you look at what he's done, right? Okay, so in the last 2 weeks, he signed with Red Bull. He's announced partnerships with DSW and American Eagle. He has some lucrative roster value deals. And you factor that all in, and yes, his valuation continues to rise. The other thing that we need to evaluate when a valuation rises is it takes in the moment, right? Like when someone's social media following explodes, it really impacts their valuation. And with that comes, right, people are like, oh, the valuation rises. Well, not only does the valuation rise, but somebody like Jeremiah Smith is going to have a lot more brands coming his way as this football season progresses. Yeah. And the other thing that's going to happen too, Josh, is there's going to be an end of the season. And when the end of the season hits, what happens? New contracts are signed. So all of that is factored in.
Because it's essentially free agency at the end of every season right now.
Unless there's a multi-year contract, yes.
And how often do we see multi-year contracts? I hear behind the scenes it's more one-year deals. Let's talk next year.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people even have monthly deals that roll over. The multi-year deals are a rarity. And they really happen a lot at the quarterback position when a program feels really good about a program builder.
All right. Speaking of getting paid, let's talk Prize Picks. Prize Picks is great. You pick 2 or more players, then select more or less than on their stat line. Now, Travis Hunter, he's been the big winner for me this year on more than one occasion. This week, though, I'm going Cam Ward, Miami quarterback, more than 298. Now, I think he's going to go over 300 in this game, but I'm taking the more than. Now, I'll probably pair that up with the Jeremiah Smith TD pick. Boom. That's how I hit. That's how I make money. What about you? Prize Picks. It's easy. It's fun. It's a great way to play daily fantasy while you watch your favorite college football team. Let me know who you guys got in your lineup. I need some winners. Let me know. Prize Picks. It is the most fun way to make a little money during the football season. So here's what we're going to do. Go to prizepicks.com/inside scoop. Use promo code inside scoop and receive a guaranteed $50 when you play 5. That's promo code inside scoop. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Go check out Prize Picks. All right. Now, Ryan Williams, he was another star wide receiver. He had a huge performance against Georgia on national television. The whole world, literally at least the sports world, is buzzing about 17-year-old Ryan Williams, what he did against Georgia. So does he see an increase in his NIL value after just a game like that?
Yeah, so let's break it down. He's added over 160,000 social media followers.
Matters.
I mean, to put that into perspective, that is one of the largest spikes that we've seen in the NIL era, and that's comparing it to Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders after that TCU game a year ago. And then you look at his valuation. His valuation is now at $1.5 million. It was at roughly $765,000 a week ago. To just show you just how much it's taken off following that Georgia performance. And you know, someone like Ryan Williams, he's a freshman just like Jeremiah Smith. He's playing for one of the biggest brands in college football. He made the biggest play of the biggest game of maybe we'll see in the entire season. That is really hard to quantify, okay? And the other thing you need to consider, too, about someone like Ryan Williams, right? Serena Williams talked about him on Twitter. That has almost like 18 million views. A Sports Center tweet has almost like 5 to 10 million. Like, those types of impressions are invaluable when you're trying to talk about establishing an NIL brand.
Yeah, because a brand is going to want to connect with those engagement and those follower numbers. So when we're talking followers, like Ryan Williams increases following, does he go out and tweet, or are these just people just randomly just pulling up, searching his name on Instagram and hitting follow?
So a lot of that is Instagram. You see a lot of these follower spikes on Instagram, and what it is, reels and posts and things like this these days. But the one thing that Ryan Williams has done extremely well is he loves to collab with people. So like when SportsCenter is like collab, Alabama football, OT7, things like that, he immediately accepts the collab, and then all of a sudden his profile is on more and more people's Instagram feeds.
Hey, he knows how to work it. All right, so does this impact that we're seeing with the true freshman wide receivers this year? I mean, there are other true freshmen, but it seems like the wide receivers this year are kind of popping off the page. So does the impact in success that they're having correlate to what we're seeing in the 2025 recruiting cycle at the wide receiver position?
So a couple things. Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith are two of the best wide receivers we'll ever see in the modern recruiting era. They are in this NIL social media era where their on-field value is almost second to none, but they also have these major brands. That's what makes them very valuable, sure. And that's why their valuations are over $1.4 million. But when it comes to recruiting too, if you look at it, Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams both had really interesting recruitments.
Yeah.
They also, everybody knew they were good, right? It was never a question of how's this going to pan out. No, it was like these guys are going to be instant superstars, and because of that, they got some really lucrative NIL packages. And what has that meant on this year's recruiting class, Josh? It means that the average value of an elite wide receiver has significantly spiked in the last 2 years because of the impact that Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams have made when it comes to recruiting elite wide receivers.
So we're talking Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams and Ryan Wingo and some of these other, what they're doing on the field this year is having an impact on guys like Decorian Moore, Khalil Lockett, Jamie French, etc.
But it really also goes back, right? Jeremiah Smith, his national signing day last year, he pulled the Ohio State hat out of the backpack, but then it took him 8 hours to sign his national.
What do you think was going on during that 8 hours, Pete?
There were some final negotiations on NIL contracts going down. Ryan Williams reopened his recruitment. He settles on Alabama. I'm sure he had a moment during that period, though, to really think about who's offering the most dollars. Ryan Wingo, it's no surprise here on this recruiting show. Texas has one of the most aggressive NIL collectives in the country. That's not a secret. So you look at those three, how elite they are, where they went, and also the dollars they can command, and what happened during their recruitment. You can tie the exact correlation to what this recruiting cycle has looked like at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, and for those teams, I mean, these wide receivers have been priceless, really, to the performance and the output that they're giving as soon as they step on campus. So, if you are recruiting a Jamie French or one of these high-end wide receivers like a Decorian Moore, Khalil Lockett, you probably got to be on the defensive all the way until they enroll on campus. Yeah. Because like you said, even though, Jeremiah Smith put the hat on in the ceremony, he still spent the next 8 hours fielding calls from other programs.
I mean, and you think about it too, when we say priceless, like what happens in that Alabama-Georgia game if Ryan Williams isn't there to make some spectacular catches and moves? And what are we talking about at Ohio State right now with Will Howard in the wide receiver room if Jeremiah Smith doesn't seamlessly go in there and start on day one?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right, you guys, let us know how we feeling about these NIL valuations. I mean, if you're an Alabama fan, you're probably feeling like, hey, we got a deal on Ryan Williams. But let us know if you're a Texas fan, wherever you're a fan of Ohio State, let us know, comment section below.